Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Alyssa. This is Petitely Packaged, part of my blog. I talk about books, romance, travel, pop culture, finance, blackness, how to keep your hair off your face, all that jazz. Also hair. And if you're not new here, thank you for coming back and listening to me ramble. Today I have a review of Alyssa Cole's Unconditional Freedom. Like I mentioned in my previous video about romance recommendations, I received an e-arc of the book a week before its release, and I was super excited to dive right into it, and it really resonated with me and stayed with me. So I didn't get to make the review the day that I finished. But if all goes well, this will be up on the book birthday or the day after the book birthday, but hopefully it's book birthday. So let's get started. Unconditional Freedom follows the story of Daniel Cumberland and Haneta Sanchez. Haneta is Cuban-born. She has a black mother and a white father. Her father is a slave owner. Her mother was enslaved, and after his first wife died, Don Sanchez married Benita. So Benita is the only biracial sibling. Her other siblings are white. She's also the youngest, and her mother died before the family moved to America in Palaca, Florida. Yes, and if you were wondering how to pronounce the name of the town, if you read the book, it's Palaca. Well, Palaca. I am from Florida, so that's why. And Juanita has a love interest, not Juanita, Haneta. Why am I calling her Juanita? Haneta has a love interest, Henry, who has tasked her in infiltrating the Loyal League, which is the detective spy series that helps the Union to undermine the Confederacy. Yes, in order to win back her father's freedom after he's been imprisoned by the Union for what Haneta believes is due to her passing along information. Daniel is a man from Massachusetts. He was born free but later enslaved. While he was studying to be a lawyer, he was in love with the lead character from our first book, Unconditional. An Extraordinary Union, yes. Ellen Burns, and he wanted to prove to her that, that he could get ish done. And he ended up being lured into what he thought was a safe space with allies, and instead they enslaved him, sold him down south. His papers didn't need to be squat. And once he was free, he wanted vengeance. So he joined the Loyal League and worked from there. He was a lone wolf. And these two end up getting thrown together when Haneta infiltrates the League, or the 4 L's as they call them. Liberty, Life, Lincoln. And what's the last L? Liberty, Life, Lincoln, and Loyalty, duh. Loyalty League, duh. Yeah. So that's the main gist and review of our characters. I would say I liked this book. I don't love it as much as I love the first book, and I think it's because it resonated with me more. This book was the hardest for me to complete, and I think it's because it was written so very well. That's why it was the hardest for me to complete, because it's touched on in the author's note at the end of the book, but unlike the other series that was written, An Extraordinary Union and A Hope Divided, and in Unconditional Freedom, we see here 200 and something years later that our people still aren't free. That even though we aren't enslaved and in chains anymore, we're still facing some of the same atrocities that the characters in the story faced, and the same fears that they shared. And I think that's one of the most depressing parts, is that it's set in a time when so many enslaved people and people who weren't enslaved were working and envisioning the day that their children and grandchildren wouldn't have those fears and would be seen as equal, and that equality would exist, and it still doesn't. And the fight still continues. And I think that was what resonated with me the most, and why it was one of the most difficult parts to get through, and why I'm trying not to tear up during this review and I don't cry a lot. But yeah, it's just the writing, it got to me. And I'm not going to cry. I'm not a crier. Although crying is good. Crying is healthy, okay? So don't be afraid to cry. But I'm an ugly crier, so YouTube does not need to see that. But I would say that I loved Haneta's character development, is that you see her realizing that everything that she had been told wasn't necessarily true, and working through her own identity as someone who grew up with enslaved people, tending to her every need of her mother and her father, distinguishing her from the enslaved people, and saying, no, you're not like them, even though when she looked at them, she's like, they look like me, but you're not them. And like her going back and forth with the loss of a mother, the loss of a parent, and having so many questions about her mother and why she did the things she did, and also the things that her father did and how he justified it, and was he a good person? Were enslaved people happy? And recollecting on things that she had asked as a child and had just been kind of told to shut up and stop asking questions about, to be quiet, to be demure, to stay in a lady's place, to not be wild, to not be negra, to not be morenita. And it was interesting to see her develop. I wasn't expecting to like her as much, because like I was like, oh, this girl is just dumb and naive. But like also she's a product of her home and her environment, and also while she's a product of both her parents, she's very much a product of her formerly enslaved mother. And that's something that really, that part there, the relationship between Haneta and her mother, it resonated with me, because you have, and still to this day, like the existence of Black motherhood, of being able to mother your child as a Black woman, especially a darker skinned Black woman, it's so contentious in America, in the Western world, I would say in general, and that it's not guaranteed. And the fact that her mom plotted and saw her in to have that, to have the right to be free in the confines of what she could in the society in the time that she existed, to have better for her child, to want better, and to have obtained it and tried to have protected her from the cruel world and society that she existed in, is I don't want to say angry, but as irritated as I was with Haneta's mom, I understood it. You want better for your child. You don't want them to suffer the way that you did. And her mother was enslaved, so she suffered atrocities and just cruelty and inhumanity. So I get that from a survivalist point, from an anthropological point, from just a human point. You want your children to exist. And her mother played on that otherness as a form of protection, which is what people do. You find ways to protect yourself. Even though it later came to be her detriment in some existence and fed into her naivete, I got it. And then you have Daniel, who very much his naivete mirrored that of Haneta. In the sense that he thought, he could just go and be young and with a book and the right mindset, like anything could be changed. And that was a lot of why him and Elle weren't equally yoked and weren't a good fit. And why he had such a hard time when he was enslaved. And I think that's like, as much as we envision it, like you can never, unless you live through something like that, I don't think you can ever fully understand how soul breaking and just brutal it could be. And he learned that, and we see like him dealing with the shame of it and the anger that he had for himself and the post-traumatic disorder that he dealt with afterwards, the nightmares, the rage, the outlash, and not being able to blend back into society the way people expected him to, because he was coming back from a war and a trauma, and it just, it was a lot. Yeah. But I will say, even through all of that, all of the unpleasantries, if you can call them that, there was a lot of wit between Hanetta and Daniel, and you could see like them fighting their attraction a bit, but also them like allowing themselves to grow. And that's what I like the most about this one, well, the series in general, is that the romance doesn't overshadow the importance of like, yes, we have these feelings, we have these revelations about ourselves, but also that this world is bigger than us, that our people matter to us, and that we have a job to do, we have shit to get done. But the banter between them, and Hanetta not backing down, and Daniel just kind of dismissing her as a silly agent, but her fighting to prove that she is her own, that she can stand on her own 2 feet, and that she is helpful and useful to the cause. I love that so much. But I also loved him like warring between these two parts of himself, of the former Daniel who had been free and naive, and this war-wrought Daniel who isn't likely to trust and work with people, and who's scarred and battered both physically and mentally, still being able to keep up with her, stay witty and crack a smile, and kind of shed those layers a bit, even though you can never really get rid of them, but like erase the roughness, and you still see the scars, but they're smoother, and just appreciating being with her, and someone who matches his intellect and asks him questions and is trying to figure out the world as he once was. It just, yeah, it was great. And I think you should read it. It is a heavier read, I will say, than the other two, but I really, really enjoyed it. And we also were introduced to the Daughters of the Tents, which is another spy league. So I'm hoping that means that we're going to get another book, maybe another series instead of the Loyal League, the Tents, I don't know, whatever Alyssa Cole may call this. I really, really want there to be more, and to see more of these characters, even if it's a novella with Hanetta and Daniel, or Ellen and Malcolm, or Marley and Ian. No, Ewan. Yeah, I always forget about those two. Well, how to pronounce his name, I should say. I would really, really like to see these characters again in some form of another. Even like during the war, after the war, after they settled down, figured out what they're going to do, what their lives look like. Yeah, it was great writing. It's a great book. It's a great series altogether. You should read it. I go on in another series called Scottish Bays and Black Women in STEM, which will be linked somewhere here. Y'all should watch that too. But I would give this book 4.5 stars out of 5. It's not a complete perfect to me, just I think because of my own emotions, but it's damn near perfect. And I'm sure for a lot of you it will be a 5. Yeah, it was good. It was good, y'all. So read it. Support Alyssa Cole. Also, I saw a tweet about some of the other books in the series being cheaper on Amazon, so maybe get into that. Yeah. And if you read this book or any of the other books in the series, I would love to know your thoughts and what you rate them and how they resonated with you or didn't. But thank you so much for watching them. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Goodreads and Twitter and Instagram. Read my blog. Click them links, because we all just trying to get a little bit of money. No, I'm joking, you don't have to, but be sure to subscribe just to keep in touch with me, and I look forward to seeing you again. If you're new, thanks so much for making it to the end of the video, and if you are a returner, thanks for listening to me ramble again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.